I'm Jacob Seelman.
And I'm Tom Baker.
You're listening to Speed77 Radio,
powered by Race Chaser Online.
We are your home for motorsports.
I don't know if I could get any more excited than what I am right now. I'm out of breath, I'm exhausted, but I don't care because it's a special Tuesday night primetime edition of Motorsports Madness here on Speed77 Radio, powered by Race Chaser Online. I'm Jacob Seelman, the voice of Speed77, back from the parts beyond dirt tracks across the southeast, wherever you may have seen me over the last 3 days, and back here in the studio as we get set to recap everything that happened over one of the biggest weekends in motorsports for the year, joined by my two co-hosts, Tom Baker, Kyle Souza, special guest co-host Stephen Ovens, Joel Sebastianelli going to be joining us a little bit later. Tom, I will start with you because we have got a lot to talk about in a short time. To do it in an hour just doesn't seem like enough for Memorial Day weekend. Monaco, Indy, Charlotte, Kansas, you name it. We had it all over the weekend.
I would say, yeah. Again, it was a magical week to be a race fan. You literally had a smorgasbord of motorsports to choose from on TV and plenty of action at all of the local and regional tracks around the country. Let's get started.
Let us get started. Kyle, welcome back into the studio. I know you've had your own stuff going on the last couple of weeks, but we're glad to have you back with us. And boy, I hope you were keeping an eye on some stuff because if you weren't, boy, you got a lot to catch up on.
Well, Jacob, got up Sunday morning, of course, past the first race of the day. I was in bed a little late, but got to watch the whole Indianapolis 500 from green to checker, something I haven't done in past years, but was intrigued about that one this year with Kurt Busch in it as well. Took a couple of hours away in the middle and then went back for the Coca-Cola 600, which was, I'll say, a subpar event compared to the Indianapolis 500. The racing wasn't as phenomenal, at least till the end. We had some decent racing there at the end, but it was kind of one of those races where Jimmy Johnson was on the pole. He had a couple of struggles in the middle, but at the end, Jacob, he picks up the win.
So much for six-time not being in the chase, eh, Stephen?
I know. I won't say that I stand up and root for the 48 car, but I am glad that we don't have to ask that question of when they're going to win anymore.
Oh, I think we all are. I think everybody's sick of hearing when's Jimmy going to win. Tom, I'm actually a little bit surprised at how this weekend turned out for Team 48. We expected about every other place than Charlotte for this team to bounce back after the start to the year they've had. They've been so good at Las Vegas. They've been so good at Fontana. They've been so good at where we're going to this weekend, Dover. They've been so good at Darlington. So many of these other racetracks that we expect to see Jimmy just rock and roll at, that he hadn't rock and rolled at so far in 2014. We go to Charlotte, a place where he's been terrible since they repaved it. And what does he do? He looks like the Jimmy Johnson of old and wins his fourth Coke 600. Leads nearly half the race, too.
Well, I don't know when you say it was the last place we expected. Wasn't in that, whatever discussion that was. Anytime the 48's on the track at Charlotte, you've got to be looking at the 48. He was way off at the All-Star race last weekend, just not as far off as Tony Stewart, but he was definitely not his usual self at the All-Star race. But they were so impressed with the way that Kenny Francis and the 5 car with Casey Kane ran, that they went ahead and took a look at their notes, and I think they pulled a couple of things from those notes and put them on the 48, and all of a sudden the car came back to life again, and he looked like the Jimmy Johnson of old. With that being said, there were certainly some other great performances. Not chief among them was the 88 of Dale Jr., who didn't get the result that he should have had, but boy, he was fast. And Kevin Harvick as well, and of course another guy who wins at Charlotte fairly often lately. Kevin, with the Freaky Fast 4, wasn't quite freaky fast enough to beat the 48, but he definitely had a hot rod and put on a good show the whole race long. Jamie McMurray fast again. I mean, there were a number of cars that, that kind of took their turns at the front of the field, but people like Jimmy had them covered. I got to tell you, though, the guy I felt the most sorry for was Kurt Busch. I mean, he just, after such a great day at Indy, he just, boy, the Cup car was, they struggled with it. They had just gotten it to the point where it was on the way and they were climbing, and then poof, the motor blew. And just tough break, Kyle, for Kurt Busch, because, man, he wanted to complete the whole 1,100 miles, and he came up roughly 200 short.
Yeah, Tom, I was going to actually mention that. Excuse me, Jacob, 1 second here. I'm going to mention quickly, as Tom said, Kurt Busch's struggles. Tom, during that race, the car was absolute trash. What he said on the radio at the start, they kept working on it, and where did he end up? He was just outside the top 10 when the motor went sour.
Yeah, it was kind of like Brad Keselowski complaining about the motors, and then running as well as he did. It was one of those things. These guys get pretty emotional. It's a long night, and it's a long race. But yeah, I felt bad for Kurt. He did a great job, though, Jacob. You really got to take your hat off to him. I know we'll talk more about the Indy side of it once Joel shows up at the round table here shortly. But that was just an incredible feat, and he handled that whole thing at the 600 very well too. I mean, he was. He wasn't mad. He just, he was obviously disappointed, but I think he was proud of what he'd accomplished, and I surely hope it's not the last time we see that attempt, and the last time we see him in an IndyCar, and I'd like to see a few more, too.
You think? I can only think of about, half a dozen guys at least that could do the double. It would be fan-freaking-tastic if we got a couple more of them because of the job Kurt Busch did this year. And Kurt proved that you can step in an IndyCar and do some pretty great things, really, without a whole lot of extra track time besides what they give you. It was impressive. I was exceptionally proud of the job he and that whole Andretti Autosport team did. And like you said, in just a few minutes when Joel gets here to the round table, we'll talk a little bit more about Kurt Busch's run. Want to go back to the Kevin Harvick thing because, Tom, I know Harvick probably was the one driver who could have challenged Jimmy Johnson, and I felt like was the one driver who had a winning car besides that 48 team, and it's just like Kevin has said, they need to stop shooting themselves in the foot. This time it's a loose wheel on a pit stop just past halfway that derails Kevin from not only his third win of the season, but potentially his third Coca-Cola 600 triumph, and they had a good car, but now we'll never know.
Well, and the interesting thing is that he used to complain about the crew a lot at Childress, too. In fact, he complained about his own crew half the time when he owned the Nationwide team. But, he wasn't the only one that had that happen. There were 3 or 4 teams that made mistakes in the pits the other night. And, here again, it's just such a long race, and I'm certainly not defending someone, leaving a loose wheel in true Kenny Rogers form. It is what it is. I mean, drivers make mistakes on the racetrack, and pit crews make mistakes as well. And that was an unfortunate one because you're right. That certainly put him at a huge disadvantage at a time when he should have been up doing battle with a 48 car. And I felt bad for him because of it. And like I said, there were a few pit crews that had situations the other night, and I will certainly never jump on a member of a pit crew because I've watched pit crew practice, and I got to tell you what those guys go through for hours and hours and hours in all, kinds of heat and whatever. I have a ton of respect for them. So it was unfortunate, but excuse me, I thought the way that, honestly, I kind of thought we were talking about a mistake. We aren't talking about a bad pit crew. They've done well for Kevin this year, but we're talking about a mistake, and it's all it takes is one mistake when these cars are so close and the competition is where it is, especially in a race like that. That's the last point at which you want to have that kind of a situation. So I can understand Kevin's frustration for sure, but just an unfortunate deal there.
So Jimmy Johnson gets the win, his 67th career, first of the season. He's virtually locked into the chase now, barring something really weird happening, like about another 6 or 7 different winners in the next 12 or 13 races, which I guess, by the way this season's gone so far, is certainly possible. Steve, I want to turn to you because we saw a couple incredible moves, not just in the Sprint Cup race, but in the Nationwide race on Saturday as well. And Tom was going crazy about this, and he's probably going to jump on me for not letting him have this one. But the move that Kyle Larson made to go to the lead around Brad Keselowski, passing 3 lap cars and Keselowski in one corner to go to the lead, and then never looking back. This cat, how many times do we have to say he's the real deal? He is the real deal. Second Nationwide win of the season, and boy, did he ever earn it.
Oh, he certainly did. And I think with every run like this that Kyle has, I mean, yeah, certainly a win is going to turn some heads and make people believe that he is the real deal. But the more the more he makes moves like this in front of everybody can see, okay, this is not just a flash in the pan. This is a really, really talented racer who's going to be around for a while. And I got to tell you, that move he made on Saturday, boy, it sure looked like he moved the wing back a little bit when he come out of 4.
That's a great way to say it, Steve. Kevin Harvick may be freaky fast, but let me tell you something. Kyle Larson is freaky phenomenal. This kid, that move that was made was just, I mean, you just held your breath and, just drives right by everybody in front of him. That was a man's move. And now, with that being said, I've seen those moves made, and you're either a hero or a zero, and he was certainly a hero there, but that was just a mega run that he had on those cars, and just blasted by 3 of them in the corner and was gone. He just is amazing. I really, he's got to be, if he's not the most talented driver to come along in the last decade, he's certainly in the top 3 because he just can drive the wheels off anything. And the one thing about him is, you want to say he has no fear, and I think that's basically true, but you don't see him putting himself in a lot of risky situations, Jacob. As much as that move looked like it was terribly, I guess we can say ballsy. It was not really a high risk move unless somebody moved up when they normally wouldn't have. He just had a run, saw the hole, and just went for it. It was just amazing. He's a really, really instinctive racer who's reminding us all, I think, of Kyle Busch. When Kyle Busch first came into Cup, he was much like that as well. And now Kyle, I mean, he can still, don't get me wrong, he still goes up to the wall in the restarts and, passes a bunch of cars or whatever. But Kyle Larson is just amazing.
Yeah, I think he can almost see these holes even better than Busch did when he first came onto the sport, and I just think that's what makes him so dangerous on the racetrack, dangerously good, mind you. So Larson grabs the win in the History 300, moves a step closer, I think, to grabbing that Sprint Cup win. And Tom, I know the one thing you and I pointed out, though, after that race was the lack of what we expected, and I think it even threw ESPN for a loop. They're calling it the anti-burnout on Twitter now.
Well, yeah, and you know what? I see now. I'm not one that really gets into the whole burnout thing. It just isn't that big of a deal to me, and I think everybody made a big deal of the fact that he really didn't do anything. But I just, I don't think that's. To me, that's no big deal at all. It's basically what he did is he saved a transmission, and they won't have to junk the whole thing now. So I don't think it's a big deal at all. I just, to me, that's not even a news story. Frankly, it's just one of those things where people have come to expect it, and I think that's exactly the problem. It was one of those things like the Polish victory lap. When Alan Kowicki did it, it was sincere because it meant something to him, but when some guy from Ireland does it just because, it got to the point where everybody was doing it, and it took away the uniqueness of it, and I think everybody's doing smoke shows now, and I just don't think they're that big a deal.
Fair enough. I'll give you that point, and want to hit one other note from the NASCAR garage. Congratulations, Jeb Burton, ThorSport Racing, announcing today that Burton going to have full-time sponsorship for the rest of 2014. That keeps him on the tour, and that is good to see after everything that happened with the Turner Scott organization that Burton was unfortunately let go from just before the start of the season. But glad to see him have a home with ThorSport, the defending Truck Series champion team, and good to see that he'll be able to challenge for the 2014 title. He's got some work to do, but that was just a really good piece of news that came out of the day. Joel Sebastianelli's in the house. He's going to be up next as we dive right into Open Wheel Central. We're going to hit the Indianapolis 500. We're going to hit the Monaco Grand Prix. We're going to hit Indy Lights with a fantastic finish for the second year in a row, and I'm sure Joel's even got some other stuff to scrounge up from the world of wine and cheese dining, and maybe a few more whiners than there would normally be. We'll get into that next. You are listening to Motorsports Madness here on Speed77 Radio and Race Chaser Online. We'll be right back.
For 17 years, Stock Car Steel has been a leading materials supplier to the racing industry. We're proud they're a motorsports content partner here at Race Chaser Online. The biggest names in NASCAR trust Stock Car Steel for raw materials such as carbon steel, chrome moly, DOM, aluminum, plastics, and much more. You can't build a race car without the basic materials, and Stock Car Steel is the place to get them. Don't forget to also visit Stock Car Steel's sister company, SRI Supplies, for racing and industry. SRI is the place to go for all your shop supply needs. Nuts, bolts, rivets, tapes, adhesives, cutting tools, chemicals, body shop supplies, paint shop supplies, lubricants, and more. A well-stocked race shop is a winning race shop, and the path to winning begins with 3 letters, SRI. For more information, visit stockcarsteel.com or SRI-supplies.com. Check them both out on Facebook or call them toll-free at 1-888-752-7272, 1-888-752-7272.
Every Saturday you wake up and wonder, is this going to be it? Is this going to be the day? The day it all clicks. The day you break through. The day you stand out above the rest. The day everyone remembers who you are. The day you stop wondering if you belong here. Is this going to be the day?
I'm Jacob Seelman.
And I'm Tom Baker.
You're listening to Speed77 Radio,
Powered by Race Chaser Online.
We are your home for motorsports.
Welcome back to Motorsports Madness here on Speed77 Radio and RaceChaserOnline.com. Jacob Seelman, Tom Baker, Kyle Souza, Stephen Ovens, Joel Sebastianelli, the whole gang's around the round table tonight, and that's an exciting feeling. Joel, I tell you what, this Memorial Day weekend wrap-up edition of the Madness, primetime is fun, but I'll tell you what else was fun, and that was early morning heroics by Nico Rosberg, and one of the most thrilling Indianapolis 500s I've personally been able to hear. I got to see it after the fact, but definitely one of the most exciting 500s in years. How about this to kick off Open Wheel Central? I'm excited, and I know, thinking about how excited you were about going into this weekend, I'm sure it lived up to your expectations, no?
After the euphoria from everything that happened on Sunday, it's almost felt like a letdown these last 2 days, because there's nothing else that can compare to the magic and the excitement that we saw, particularly at the Indianapolis 500. Certainly one of the best 500s, best races, period, ever at IMS, whether it's on the road course or other races on the oval. Absolutely outstanding effort across the board by Andretti Autosport, placing cars first, third, fourth, sixth with Kurt Busch. So many storylines at Indianapolis, and then at Monaco, one of the better Monaco Grands Prix in years as well. Plenty of passing, plenty of excitement, and a rivalry between Lewis Hamilton and Nico Rosberg that has emerged that I think is only going to intensify as the year goes on, and we're going to look back on this a couple decades from now, and it's going to be up there with some of the legendary rivalries we've seen in the sport.
And it's even better because they're teammates. Let's talk Monaco first, and then we'll get to everything that happened at IMS, because there's 2 races to talk about from over the weekend that were both equally thrilling in my mind. But Monaco first. Nico and Lewis going at it, and it's not that we didn't expect this at all. I think maybe we expected Red Bull to be slightly more competitive, but the 2 Mercedes just dominated like they've been doing all season long. But I think you and I, Joel, expected Lewis Hamilton to go in this a little bit more guns blazing than he did, and I don't know that he expected Nico Rosberg to be quite as up on the hammer as he was. Rosberg going back-to-back in Monaco, and that's a feat that puts Nico in some very, very exclusive company.
Very exclusive company, especially based on the way he did it as well. First since Ayrton Senna to win back-to-back and lead every single lap in those back-to-back performances. So Nico Rosberg certainly following in some big footsteps, and a well-deserved victory as well. For Lewis Hamilton, a couple things hindered his weekend. Now at Monaco, it is so important to start on the pole in this race because it's very difficult to pass at Monaco. It can be done, but a lot of it has to be done either through tire strategy or through very, very bold moves and being right up along the back of somebody, perfect placement at the perfect spots on the track to do it. And in qualifying, it looked like Lewis Hamilton was going to usurp Nico Rosberg. He was running faster than Nico was on the final lap, and Nico had a bit of an off. Now, Formula One is different than an IndyCar. In IndyCar, if something happens to slow the session, and you're the driver at fault, whether it's accident or something along those lines, your top 2 times from the session are stripped. Formula One does not have that rule. So although it certainly wasn't blatant, like Michael Schumacher stopping his car at Monaco just in the middle of the track to end the session, though it certainly wasn't blatant like that, and I certainly don't think it was intentional, Nico Rosberg's own mistake actually contributed to him starting on the pole with a minute and 15.9 9-second time, fastest of the weekend. So certainly well-deserved for Nico, but that brought the tension to a boil. Lewis didn't like it, and then in the race, the pit strategy falling apart. Right before the safety car, Lewis wanted to come in, and if he did beat Rosberg into the pits, then what would have happened is he would have been first on the track, because Nico would have had to go in during the safety car. But there was a miscommunication. He couldn't go in, ended up coming out second, and ended up finishing second as well. So a lot of frustration for Lewis Hamilton heading into Canada 2 weeks from now. But the good news for Lewis, I suppose, Jenson Button came out today and said that every time Lewis would get upset like this, every time Jenson would beat Lewis, when the two ran together at McLaren, without fail, Lewis would come back and destroy him in the next race. So Nico Rosberg had a better look out, because Lewis Hamilton is going to be gunning for him at Circuit Gilles Villeneuve.
All right, Tom, you're up on this one, because I know you've started to enjoy, even though they've kind of been dominant, you've started to enjoy this little rivalry, too, between Nico and Lewis, and you thought Nico was going to win the Monaco Grand Prix, which you were right, and you said, in parentheses, unless Lewis wrecked him, of course. So what do you make of these two?
Well, exactly what I said. I mean, Joel summed it up very well. That course is nearly impossible to pass on. That's why Lewis was so frustrated, because he didn't get the pole, because he basically realized that at that point he was either going to have to somehow pull a perfect pass off and make something happen almost miraculously, or he was going to finish second. I love the rivalry between the two of them, except that, it just frustrates me. It's an ongoing frustration. I guess it's probably the background I come from, which is short track racing. I I like it when more than one team has a chance at winning. And in Formula One right now, it is Mercedes, and then everybody else is running for third. There's nobody even close. So, it just doesn't move me as much as it should. Though I do agree with Joel that this rivalry is going to be one for the ages. The unfortunate thing is they're running open wheel cars. So, this would work very well if we were, running at Hickory in a couple of late models where they could take turns slam banging each other every week and really put on a show for the fans and have nothing left of the cars at the end. You can't do that in Formula One. You'll kill somebody. So, but you know what? It is what it is. I mean, F1 is just, every year there's one team that just dominates, it seems like. It's been a long time since we've had more than one team that's actually competitive for wins at a time, and I don't understand why, but I just wish we'd get past it because there's some really good drivers in some of these other cars that are they just don't have it. The cars just don't have it. Mercedes has got them covered, but I love the rivalry. I just, from what I'm told, I didn't get to see Monaco because I had other obligations, but, I'm told it was an unusually exciting race. So, I'm glad for the F1 fans on that one because a lot of times, as much as I love the course, it just doesn't produce great racing.
Well, it wasn't really that long ago. It was 2012. To start the season, you had 7 different winners in 7 different races, which was a great streak. Personally, and maybe this is just me coming from an open-wheel background and being as into F1 as I am, but I think that parity is a little bit overrated. Granted, I love it. A more competitive series is better for fans. It's arguably better racing. That's great. It's something that's amazing about IndyCar. IndyCar has better parity than any main racing series anywhere in the world right now, I think, even more than NASCAR. But it's also a spec series. All your cars are the same, and I love that in Formula One, these teams that get ahead by a country mile are ahead that far for a reason. There's this ingenuity, this innovation that's exclusive to that team, a complete team effort, not just in driving, but in putting the car together as well. It's something that, no other series has that much freedom as well either. You've got 11 different teams, 11 completely different chassis on these cars. To each his own, but, in Formula One, I think that's something that makes F1 great and certainly makes it different from anything else that's offered out there in the world.
Joel, I agree with everything you're saying. The only thing that just shocks me is that as much as it isn't as though you've got one well-funded team or 2 well-funded teams and the rest aren't. I mean, these teams have millions upon millions of dollars behind them, and it just blows me away. And you're right about 2012, and I'd forgotten about that. That was before Red Bull just took off and became, again, they've been the team up until this year. But it just blows me away that we can't get more than one at a time with all these great genius mechanics and engineers and all that and the resources they have. It just blows me away that we seem lately to not be able to get more than one that's any good.
Whoa. Back up. Joel and Tom actually agreed on something. Stop the presses.
Well,
it happens
partially.
Once in a while. Frame the show.
Yeah, it's certainly very rare. And you're right, every single race this season for Australia, it's been a 1-2 finish for Red Bull, not for Red Bull, for Mercedes, either way, between Rosberg and Hamilton. But this rivalry is turning into something that's fantastic. I personally love it. A lot will bash Lewis Hamilton for whining, but to me, his behavior after Monaco, that was the competitive spirit showing through. I would like to think that outwardly, if I was in his shoes, I would have handled it a little bit differently, but you spend your entire year thinking about 2 things. So you think about the Monaco Grand Prix and you think about the Formula One World Drivers' Championship, and anytime there's a roadblock, if that's not going to fire you up as a driver and force you to perform better on a weekly basis, then you really should not have a car. Personally, I love seeing the character like this. I don't want to see them rattle off a list of sponsors and give the same cliche answers. This is their true racing character that's showing through, and I think for fans it's great. They just came out the other day. Lewis Hamilton said at Monaco, quote, "We are not friends." They used to be great friends. The two of them grew up racing together in karts, and this relationship has taken a turn for the south, but it's taken a turn for the north, I suppose you could say, for the better for fans. This is going to be an absolutely phenomenal rivalry. Shades of Senna and Prost and Lauda, Hunt, all of these great rivalries in Formula One. This is going to be right up there. It doesn't matter if Fernando Alonso and Daniel Ricciardo are battling almost 100 points back once we get to the end of the year. This is going to be something to keep an eye on, and I'm loving it.
I'm going to cut in here, Joel, because I tell you what, and I thank you for mentioning Prost and Senna, because I rank that right there as one of the all-time greatest rivalries in F1 history, and the fact that this is even potentially turning into something that could be that great just makes me excited for the rest of the World Championship. Tom, I want to turn to you real quick, and then we need to get to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway because there's still more open wheel to talk about. But, you love a good rivalry, I love a good rivalry, and good grief, this is better than NASCAR right now.
Well, yeah, I guess in one way, but you know what? I couldn't disagree more with Joel's defense of Lewis Hamilton's just blatant poor sportsmanship and bad attitude, because I watched Elio Castroneves after the Indy 500 on Sunday, just hours later, in the same situation, the same level of disappointment, the same everything, and he showed his emotion in a much more mature, much less arrogant, and much less self-centered way than Lewis Hamilton. Lewis's remarks about the differences in the upbringing that he had versus what Nico had, which he made prior to the race, were just totally uncalled for, and just really show, you're right, Joel, his racing character came out over the weekend. He's an arrogant, privileged brat, is what he is, and I won't use the word privileged, but he is so arrogant right now and so full of himself, and he needs to, as far as they don't have to be friends, but they better work together as teammates, because that's the responsibility they have. And I really lost a lot of respect for him over the last couple of weeks. And to be honest with you, I was happy to see Rosberg win, and I hope he wins the rest of the year and shuts Lewis right out of it.
Well, I guess it gives a new meaning to the words wine and cheese, doesn't it?
Exactly.
All right, Joel, let's go to IMS, because there's still a lot more to talk about, and I want to make sure we get into some of this. Let's start with the Freedom 100, because we knew going in we couldn't top the 2013 finish, but Tom and I decided if we could even get side by side, it would be good enough, because there was no redux in that four wide finish unless we had an absolute miracle. And I guess if I'm being honest, we came about as close as we could get to that miracle. But how about the finish to that race? Matthew Brabham driving in memory of his granddad almost wins it until the last 200 yards. And here comes the other storyline. Gabby Chavez in the exact same car that won this race 1 year ago wins it in almost an identical way, just with two less cars involved in the mix at the checkered flag.
I mean, it was all right, but are you really that impressed after last year? It was twice as big a margin at 0.005 seconds. Think about that. In 2013, 0.0026 was the margin of victory for Peter Dempsey, and he edged out Gabby Chavez in that. So for Gabby, I think it's just awesome. From photo finish heartbreak in 2013 to 2014, almost an identical situation, just two cars less, only a two wide finish this time. To beat Matthew Brabham by a nose, that was awesome. And what a great way. That really set the tone for the rest of the weekend on Carb Day at IMS. A great finish for Gabby Chavez, and great for points for the Indy Lights series as well. Indy Lights is one of those series that, unfortunately, without as many cars as there used to be, every once in a while needs a bit of a shot in the arm, and up front we've certainly got that. Only 8 points separating the top three. That victory vaults Gabby Chavez into first by a single point over Zach Beach. Luis Razia, the former Formula One 1 hopeful, 257 points. He's just 8 points back. And certainly Jack Harvey and Matthew Brabham, who's had a little bit of bad luck this year, they're all in the hunt. Indy Lights is wide open in the top 5, and they're putting on some great racing, as evidenced in its best form at the Freedom 100 on Friday.
I agree 100%, Joel, again, with what you're saying. That was yeah, I know it happens. That was a phenomenal race. And you know, you could not have gone in expecting another 4 wide at the line. I mean, the fact that we were 2 wide at the line was amazing. And, you know, I felt bad for Matthew Brabham, because certainly, that would have been the Hollywood script of the entire year, that he would get the win in honor of his grandfather who had just passed away. And you know, obviously, as a friend of Zach Veach's, I would like to have seen Zach win just because. But certainly, Gabby Chavez ran a great race and deserved to win. And that was just an amazing last couple of laps again. That series doesn't have a lot of cars, but what cars it has are competitive. This is a little bit of a different situation this year than what we had last year, where Carlos basically was, you know, him and Sage Karam. Sage did enough to win the championship, but Carlos was clearly the star of the show for the majority of the year. You know, this year you've had the guys taking turns, and you know, everybody's getting a chance to shine. And I just think that that series, given another year or two, is going to be back where it needs to be. I think I love that new car that they brought out for 2015, and I think that's going to make all the difference in the world, Joel.
As Dan Anderson said, it's a sexy car.
It is. You know, I agree with you, Tom. And Jacob, if you can, you might want to go to a commercial break here. I'm going to need a minute to catch my breath. Tom and I agreeing on everything. Not just one thing, but everything so far tonight. I don't think that's ever happened. That's unbelievable.
We did not agree on Lewis Hamilton's attitude, so we disagreed on one thing, but it is still a record night for us.
Well, you know what? I'm going to take Joel up on that, believe it or not. We're going to go to a commercial, and we're going to talk the 500. And one more note from the Indy Lights Freedom 100. When we come back, you are listening to Madness on Speed 77 Radio and Race Chaser Online. Stay with us.
Packers,
Vikings,
Red State,
Blue State.
We come from different places.
Uptown,
Downtown.
We come to different conclusions.
half empty,
Half full.
But no matter how different we are, we're all connected, and we can all make a difference. That's why United Way brings people, expertise, and resources together to improve the education, income, and health of our communities, the building blocks for a better life. When we live united, our efforts, magnified by others, add up to real change. Children succeed in school, families gain financial stability, the health of our neighbors improves, and suddenly, so do our communities. But real change won't happen without you.
Live united.
So let's look beyond our differences.
Live united.
One by one, let's make a difference. Let's reach out a hand to one and influence the condition of all.
Live united.
Give, advocate, volunteer. Live United. Sign up today at liveunited.org. Brought to you by United Way and the Ad Council.
For 17 years, Stock Car Steel has been a leading material supplier to the racing industry. We're proud they're a Motorsports content partner here at Race Chaser Online. The biggest names in NASCAR trust Stock Car Steel for raw materials such as carbon steel, chrome moly, DOM, aluminum, plastics, and much more. You can't build a race car without the basic materials, and Stock Car Steel is the place to get them. Don't forget to also visit Stock Car Steel's sister company, SRI Supplies, for racing and industry. SRI is the place to go for all your shop supply needs. Nuts, bolts, rivets, tapes, adhesives, cutting tools, chemicals, body shop supplies, paint shop supplies, lubricants, and more. A well-stocked race shop is a winning race shop, and the path to winning begins with 3 letters, SRI. For more information, visit stockcarsteel.com or SRI-supplies.com. Check them both out on Facebook or call them toll-free at 1-888-752-7272, 1-888-752-7272.
I'm Jacob Seelman.
And I'm Tom Baker.
You're listening to Speed 77 Radio,
Powered by Race Chaser Online.
We are your home for motorsports.
Welcome back to the madness, and it's been mad so far tonight, but that's what you get when you put 4, or I guess 5 right now, overtired, crazy motorsports enthusiasts after Memorial Day weekend and tell them to go nuts. And I guess we've gone nuts so far, let me tell you, Joel. Let's get back to the Freedom 100 real quick. And then we'll go to Indy for the 500. But want to update Chase Austin after that really scary crash at about halfway for the Freedom 100. Glad to see he was released from the hospital the other day. He's going to have a lot of recovery to do, but I'll tell you what, I know we're going to these new cars next year, which I'm told are even safer than the cars they're running right now, but the safety of these current cars doesn't need to be understated either, because Chase Austin's car nearly ripped in half, and for him to walk away with just all things considered non-life-threatening injuries, you could consider that a relatively good day.
A hard lick. Seems like we have one of those every year in the Freedom 100. Whether it was, I think, Goncalves a few years back, Anna Beatriz had a hard hit back when she was racing in Indy Lights, and Chase Austin on Friday. Just a broken wrist that he escapes from, but I wonder how much of that is him just leaving his hands on the wheel. I really think that's what it's all about. He needed to just let go when that car was fully sideways and clearly going to make impact, but easy for me to say. I certainly wasn't the one in the car, and he's very lucky to have escaped with, I almost want to say, minimal injury. Certainly that's something that's going to put him back for a little while. He's going to have to stay out of a car, and that's very disappointing for him. But that could have been a heck of a lot worse. My, oh my, his open-wheel safety all across the board come a long, long way from the 80s and 90s.
Yeah, it really has. So I guess that puts a nice little bow on the Freedom 100. Indy Lights going to continue on with their 2014 season now, Joel, and this battle between Gabby Chavez and Zach Veach, and even throwing Matthew Brabham in there. It's going to be exciting to watch. But let's get to the big show, the Indianapolis 500. And I know we were looking for something about as equally as exciting as last year when we had 68 lead changes. And boy, you know, we had less lead changes, but we had no shortage of excitement. To IndyCar allowing the leader to be able to defend the lead, go all the way down to the wall, coming down the front straightaway and coming down the back straightaway, made for a few less lead changes, but made it really exciting because these guys could protect their turf. You know, we saw Ed Carpenter start from the pole and lead a lot of laps. We saw Townsend Bell get up there a bunch for KV Racing. We saw, of course, Elio, Marco Andretti trying so hard to shake the curse and win his first 500. There was no shortage of storylines, and when it all comes down to it, I have one thing to say: USA. USA, for the first time since 2006.
Finally, an American sipping the milk at IMS, first since Sam Hornish Jr., as you mentioned. What a great race it was, and the first time, and you're right, you didn't see this before. First time I noticed them take that line, it was Elio in the lead with about a little less than 50 to go, and he was all the way down on the bottom, hugging the wall down the front stretch. And I said right there, that's going to be the blueprint to win this race. You've got to stay as low as you can go to defend that bottom side, because that's where so many of the passes were happening. You've got to make them go around the outside, and of course everybody implemented that strategy at the end, and ultimately it was Ryan Hunter-Reay by the second closest margin in the history of the Indianapolis 500, 6/100th of a second, trailing only the 1992 Indy 500, Al Unser Jr.'s triumph over Scott Goodyear, another one of the great races at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. My, oh my, what a race it was. You had 34 lead changes, completely green for the first 150 laps, which was even better. It was a pretty clean race until you got down toward the very end. 21 caution laps in the last 50 laps of the race. And of course, a great call by IndyCar to red flag the race. Of course, don't forget, they did some repairs to the wall as well. So I don't think it was exclusively just for the sake of preserving a green flag finish, but that was certainly the overwhelming reason for it. First crash-induced red flag at the Indy 500 since 1973. 41 years since that's happened, not because of rain or because of some other factor. So a great move by IndyCar, and for the first time in 5 years, we have an Indy 500 finishing under green, and what a finish it was. Hats off to the Floridian Ryan Hunter-Reay and Andretti Autosport, mentioned it earlier, but first, third, fourth, and how about Kurt Busch in sixth?
I can't believe I'm about to agree with Joel one more time. That move to red flag the race may have been the single best decision that the IndyCar officials have made ever. I mean, imagine if we'd been robbed of that finish. That was there. It seems like it was the easy thing to do. Like, it would be obvious we would red flag it. There was debris all over the track, but that's not what's happened at all times lately. I just thought that was unbelievable on their part, and it gave us one of the most amazing dashes to the finish that I've seen ever at Indy. And, you know, two just outstanding racers fighting it out with 4 or 5 more behind them that could have just as easily factored in, you know, had things gone a little differently. So I thought it was great, man. And to be able to witness Ryan Hunter-Reay getting his first win, and as you said, Jacob, first American since Sam Hornish, and you know, I don't think he'll be the last. There are so many young kids. Sage Karam just did a great job in that race. We can't not give a shout out to him, coming from the back of the field to finish in the top 10, and just so many great driving performances. Townsend Bell and others. I just, you know, there were a few people that I saw, including Humpy Wheeler, who kind of took the 500 to task for being kind of less exciting, but I didn't find it that way. I thought the storylines and all of that were great, and I thought as long as we went without a caution, it was great as well.
Exactly right. The longest caution-free stretch, I believe, to start the 500 in history, Joel. I know if I'm not right, you'll correct me on that, but I went back at least 20 or 25 years and looked and couldn't find one that went that long from the start of the race without a caution. I think the only longer green flag stretch in 500 history would have been that stretch last year when we went in the middle of the race. How many ever laps it was until lap 193 or so, until they had that late race caution that set up Kanon's pass for the win, right?
I can't necessarily speak for the middle stint, but certainly since they've been keeping those records, which has only been since the 70s at IMS for the first caution in the Indy 500, at least in the media guide, that's the last time they go back, and I'm told that's when they started keeping those records. So at least since then, yes, it's by far the longest stint we've had to start off a race. 2000 was one of the longest as well, and it's funny because Juan Pablo Montoya leading when both of those came out, very dominant in 2000. He quite nearly had a chance to win, but heartbreaking for him to be running up front for so much of the day, driving a fantastic race, and then just like at the Brickyard 400 in NASCAR, robbed of a victory because of a pit speed violation on lap 134. Quite disappointing for Juan Pablo Montoya. But again, so many storylines like Tom mentioned. You had Sage Karam finishing 9th, Kurt Busch to hark on him again. So many guys finished outstanding. And how about Jacques Villeneuve, too? Villeneuve finishing 14th. He wasn't mentioned throughout the entire day. I was very critical of him on this very show just a couple months ago when that ride was announced, saying that he's just been leaving a trail of car parts everywhere he's gone and just tearing up so many race cars. I thought he had no place returning to the Indy 500, to be honest, compared to some of the other names, and he certainly proved me wrong in the Schmidt-Peterson Motorsports machine. A top 15 finish, so many drivers put on a great show, and if you didn't think that was an exciting race from start to finish, I'm sorry, Humpy Wheeler, I don't know what you were watching.
Thank you, Joel. I was about to go there if you didn't, but yeah, it was a thrilling 500. The whole second closest finish in history thing, if that doesn't do it for you, go find something else to watch, because the Indy 500 in recent years has been absolutely amazing. I personally wanted to see Elio win the 4th, but congratulations to Ryan Hunter-Reay on an absolutely incredible performance. He did everything he needed to do, brings the United States the Borg-Warner Trophy once again, and for Michael Andretti, wins it as a team owner. I guess it's not truly the end of the Andretti curse just yet, but I'd say it's a great start. Hunter-Reay now finishing a resume that includes an IndyCar championship, Tom, and the 500.
Well, sure, Jacob, and I don't know if I want to say the end of the Andretti curse. I think until Marco wins it, we're going to keep that. This is going to be another thing like, when is Jimmy Johnson going to win? We're going to keep talking about the Andretti curse till Marco finally gets one. But I would certainly say that as good days go at Indianapolis as a team owner in his current situation, it doesn't get much better than that. I mean, unfortunately, Hinchy didn't finish because he crashed out, but the other 4 cars being all in the top, 6, that's just amazing. I mean, to have that great of a day, and especially with Kurt Busch, a bone stock rookie who's never raced an Indianapolis car before, to come and do what he did is not only a credit to Kurt Busch, but it's a credit to the strength of Andretti Autosport and the coaching and people that he had around him who were able to communicate the right things to him all month to bring him up to speed the way they did. And I just thought it was that was a great effort by Michael Andretti and the whole Andretti Autosport team. And I think, judging from some of the kids they got in their pipeline, there'll be many more of those to come if they stay together.
Absolutely right, and I'm running a little bit into Steven's time here, and we'll tack it on. We'll do a little bit of overtime here tonight. Memorial Day weekend deserves that, but I want to harp on Kurt Busch for a second too, because we've talked about it all month long. But Rookie of the Year for the Indianapolis 500, Joel. I don't truly think that a lot of people thought he would pull it off. I think people may have thought, yeah, he's got an outside shot and he's capable of it, but I don't think we thought he'd actually be able to do it. But doggone, he nearly had a shot to challenge for the win in the Indianapolis 500. You can't ask a rookie driver, especially one with the caliber and the resume of Kurt Busch, to do any more than what he did on Sunday. The double ends in Charlotte about 200 miles early, but Kurt Busch can't hang his head. He has nothing to be ashamed of, and he put in one of the most incredible performances by a rookie, save for, guys like Juan Pablo or Elio, that I've seen in the past 2 decades or so. Kurt Busch, he needs to do it again, in my opinion, because that was just incredible.
It really was a phenomenal effort. I was very skeptical at first, but if there's any doubt he's one of the best drivers in the world, let that doubt end now. The performance, not just on Sunday, but the entire month, he got up to speed in that 26 pretty quickly. And once I saw his times on Saturday and Sunday for qualifying, you knew he was going to be competitive. If that time on Sunday, if they'd set the Fast 9 then as opposed to on Saturday, and if Kurt didn't have to leave early, he would have started on the outside of the front row. Now, my bold prediction after that was that I figured Kurt was actually going to lead a lap at some point, and that never happened. But minded his own business in the middle of the pack for much of the day, drove all the way up, and one of the great quotes from him at the end is he said, his throat was kind of dry, had a bit of a sore throat because his mouth was wide open, just smiling the entire way. What a thrill to come to the Indianapolis 500, your first time after everything he's accomplished in different forms of motorsports, finish 6th place, best rookie, hats off to him. That's incredible. And I think both he, the IndyCar Series, and NASCAR all dodged a bullet when he was uninjured in that practice crash after qualifying. Because if he was injured then, I'm not sure we would ever see anyone try the double again. But now, after his success, I think it means only good things for all 3 of those parties. And I think we'll see more people try the double in the future.
I hope so. I think it would be fantastic, and actually it's a perfect segue to really close out this edition of Open Wheel Central, because I said it to my dad, actually, over the weekend while we were on the road for our Sprint Car Speed Week, which we'll talk about after our next break. But I said Roger Penske needs to grab a stock car and let Elio get in a NASCAR Sprint Cup Series car and try his hand at the double. I just think that would be fun. And, talking about Elio one more time, he's got to wait one more year to try it again to match 4 Indianapolis 500 wins. And the quote in my mind that characterizes this year's Indy 500 from Elio himself when he said post-race that it's interesting when second kind of sucks. And he said it with a smile, but you could tell in his eyes he wanted nothing more than to match the legends A.J. Foyt, Al Unser, Rick Mears, his hero, and spotter on this day with a 4th 500 win. Elio, I truly believe if he runs a few more of these, it'll come. Roger Penske doesn't let drivers go out on the track without having a shot to win, and all three of his drivers, Tom, had a shot to win. None of them did it this year, but I'll tell you what, they certainly gave it a valiant effort.
They definitely did. They have nothing to hang their heads about. All of them ran great, and Elio, again, showed the class that he has in the way that he handled himself after that was over. But you know what, guys? We've talked all about all the drivers. We've talked about the race itself, but there's one little aspect of this that stands out in my mind that we haven't talked about yet, and that's in the pre-race. And that was, this will be the last time that we hear Jim Nabors, at least live, singing Back Home Again in Indiana. And I know that a lot of people probably think some of us over dramatize this or make too much of this, but you know what? I tear up every time I hear him sing that. I personally hope they just put him up on video from now on and just keep him doing it. I'd rather that than them try and replace that voice, because I just don't know who you get that replaces that. And Joel, I know you and I have talked about this a number of times. That the pre-race at Indy is almost as important as the race itself in a lot of ways, and almost as emotional, and certainly this was. And I love that they kept him around for the call of "Gentlemen, start your engines" too, as you pointed out as well.
It was emotion. I cried. I'm not even ashamed to admit I cried during that pre-race. And yes, class by IMS, Joel.
Definitely a great decision, something that's going to be remembered for a very long time. How fitting it is, in a way, that not even an Indiana native, Jim Nabors, just an actor, just Gomer Pyle, just comes to the Speedway and really makes something out of nothing that started as just the song at the beginning of a race over 40 years ago that's evolved into what it's become now. It just seems so fitting. Jim Nabors will certainly be missed around IMS. I don't know what they'll do. I don't know what I'd prefer, or whether they bring somebody new in every year, whether they'd bring him up on the video board. I don't know, but it's the greatest spectacle in racing for a reason, from beginning to end. Just 362 days until we do it all again.
This kid is great, and this is why we keep him around, because he puts these nice little bows on things like nobody else that I know of in most of motorsports. Joel, as always, appreciate your time. One of the greatest weekends in my mind that motorsports has had in a long time, and I can't wait until next year when we do it all again. And looking forward to seeing IndyCar continue this weekend in Detroit, Formula One continuing their season. Just a lot more to look forward to, but this weekend was magical for all of us involved, and just there's not words. I just don't think there's any more words to describe what we've seen. It was just an incredible, incredible weekend.
And that emotion right there describes it better than words ever could. Wherever and whatever you may be watching this weekend, be sure to enjoy your racing, wherever that may be. Thanks for having me on, guys.
We'll be back right after this to wrap up the show. You are listening to Speed77 Radio and Race Chaser Online. Stay with us.
My name is Joe Thompson. I'm 29 years old and I have a career that I love as a systems analyst. Career. It still sounds cool to say that word. I never could have gotten on this path without a college degree. And if the college me were here, he'd tell you.
I never would have gotten to college without Big Brothers Big Sisters. I could have ended up anywhere, on the streets even. But college? Joe Thompson? Not likely. My big brother helped me out. He taught me I could do anything, at a time when a lot of people were saying just the opposite.
And to a 7-year-old, that means a lot. My big brother's name is Phil. And Phil is the reason that this 7-year-old grows up to be a systems analyst.
Whether you donate money or time, you're helping Big Brothers Big Sisters help a child. And that can last a lifetime. Start something today at BigBrothersBigSisters.org. Brought to you by Big Brothers Big Sisters and the Ad Council.
If I had a nickel. If I had a nickel. If I had a nickel for every time I wish my car had a horn. If I had a nickel for every time.
For every lucky charm I have brought to the racetrack.
If I had a nickel.
For every wardrobe change I had to make.
Man, if I had a nickel.
If I had a nickel for every time I
Coulda, woulda, shoulda.
If you had a Sunoco Rewards credit card, you'd get a nickel for every gallon you pump. Go Sunoco.
I'm Jacob Seelman.
And I'm Tom Baker.
You're listening to Speed 77 Radio,
powered by Race Chaser Online.
We are your home for motorsports.
Overtime, because we were talking about the Indianapolis 500. How fitting it is. Welcome back to Motorsports Madness here on Speed 77 Radio and Race Chaser Online. Jacob Seelman, Tom Baker, Kyle Souza, Steven Ovens. We're all here tonight. And Steven, I want to turn to you now because we had some more Memorial Day fun to talk about over the weekend. And that's stuff on the dirt and stuff up in the Northeast world. Boy, we had some fun, didn't we? World of Outlaws action from over the weekend, Friday night in Charlotte. I had fun there. Just certainly watched a great race, and then, of course, the Memorial Day Classic that they had Monday in Lawrenceburg. Can you ask for any more out of this Memorial Day weekend? It was great.
I don't think you can, and I did want to start the World of Outlaws segment this week by taking a big bite of a crow sandwich here. You asked me if Pittman could go 4 in a row, and I told you it wasn't going to happen, and then he went over to New Egypt and put a whooping on him to make it 4 in a row. But, hey, you know, that guy Pittman is on a roll, and you know, the other guys that are contending with him for the championship, Joey Saldana and Donnie Schatz, certainly stamped their names in this title hunt as well with wins over the weekend. And I got to tell you, Jacob, I know you guys were down there, but I got to tell you that race from Charlotte is probably going to rank up there with one of the best races of the season.
Oh, yeah. And I'll tell you right now, just the job that Joey Saldana did, and I'm going to get the audio up on the website tomorrow morning that I took with him after that Charlotte show on Friday night, but the job he did to hold off Donnie Schatz and win that race. Schatz got around him at one point, and then a caution came out, and Saldana didn't let it happen again. Everything Donnie Schatz threw at him. I said to Joey, we were joking after the race, I said he threw everything but the kitchen sink at you, and shoot, he basically pretty much did. Donnie Schatz, though, avenging Friday night when Joey Saldana won. He goes up to Lawrenceburg on Monday and wins. Finally gets career win number 151. Steven, just 2 more, and he ties Mark Kinzer for 3rd all-time. We are watching some of the greats. It almost feels like it's the old era when Kinzer and Swindell were going at it, and it was back and forth, except now you've got 3 players in this new era, Pittman, Schatz, and Saldana, and this is what I think it's every bit as competitive right now as it was between Steve and Sammy back in the old days. It's just magical to watch.
You know, and let's look back. I mean, let's look back in the preseason. We talked about the fact that the World Racing Group, World of Outlaws, STP Sprint Cars were putting together what could be a magical season, and then they started racing, and all of that excitement has gone straight to the track. The competition has been outstanding. We've had newer teams come up and make runs and get wins and look great, but we've also got the perennial titans of the series going at it night after night. The other night it was Schatz and Swindell, and I can't remember in recent memory a season like this where it has been so ultra competitive, yet every night you truly do not know who it's going to be. Is it going to be a veteran? Is it going to be a rookie? Is it going to be a guy that's only been on the tour a year or two? And look at the job Logan Schuchart did. And I know that I'm a little bit of a Logan Schuchart homer, but look at what Logan did on Friday night. They just got their engines freshened up when they were back in Pennsylvania. Those guys, I heard an interview with his grandfather, Bobby Allen, last week, where, you know, that smaller team is getting the motors freshened every 15 to 20 races, where a normal Outlaws team is freshening them every 8 to 10 races. They were back in their hometown in Pennsylvania, got the motors freshened up, and there goes Logan to get a 3rd place run on Friday night.
He did a fantastic job, Steve, and I watched that cat run all the way through the feature. Actually, he started right up there towards the front row and did a great job, and his teammate Jacob Allen, even though he got lapped, once he did get lapped, he hung right in there with Logan and with the race leaders, and I just feel like he was stuck in traffic, and that's really what slowed him up. But I thought both of those cars had the speed to be very competitive all night long, and I think that whole Shark Racing team is on an upswing. So, those two, I think the second half of this season are going to be two cats to watch, to at least contend for a win or two before it's all said and done. But, you can't say enough about this championship battle. Saldana, Schatz, and Pittman within 20 points of each other. You've got, oh gosh, Stephen, it's escaping me. Fourth place, still the top four within 100 points right now. I started to say Kerry Madsen, but I know that's not quite right. Paul McMahon is who it was. I knew it would come to me after a second, but you've got all four of those cats within 100 points this championship. I hope they keep it up through the summer, because it could, again, go right down to the wire like it's done the last 3 years.
It very well could, and you've got two great races coming up this weekend, Friday and Saturday night. They're going to be out at the Attica Raceway Park on Friday night, and then Saturday moving over to the I-96 Speedway in Lake Odessa, Michigan, for the Napa Auto Parts Rumble. Should be two great races out there, and I think we're going to see much of the same of what we've seen. I really think that these guys in the top four are just going to keep grinding it out. And I don't think that Schatz getting a win on Memorial Day is going to kick off a streak of 5 or 6 in a row. But I just think there's these other competitors, Pittman, Saldana, McMahon, Sammy looked great on Memorial Day. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, we will. Tom, what have you got?
Well, I was just going to make the comment that, I sit here listening to you guys talk about the competitiveness of this series, and I just think back to the, to the my younger days when, you had guys like Doug Wolfgang and Toby Tobias and all of those drivers that, were a part of that whole Kinzer and Swindell, and, I think we forget that, there was Wolfgang, there was, the wild child, Jack Haudenschild was really a strong competitor. It's funny to me, guys, that we're sitting here talking about how competitive the World of Outlaws Sprint Car Series is, and thinking about the fact that, principally these cars haven't changed a whole lot over the last bunch of years. It's just the driving talent just keeps breeding itself from the lower series, like the ones that we rarely talk about on this show, the regional touring series, the Lucas Oil Empire Super Sprints, the Patriot Sprint Tour, the ASCS and USCS series, you and all of the active regional sprint car play hotspots, the Pennsylvania Posse, all of that. It's just an endless supply of these drivers who end up getting their shot to go big time, and when they do, they rise to the top, and we've had a bit of a turnover. Your Swindells, Sammy's still hanging around, but of course Steve's going to be gone at the end of this year. Guys, I don't see the general story that we're discussing for the World of Outlaws, the level of competition. I don't see that changing anytime in the near future. Some of the names might change, but I think the level of competition is going to be there for a long time to come. That's just a series that's just an incredibly awesome series to watch. I don't care what kind of a race fan you are.
That's absolutely right, Tom. And, we're talking about these guys who will rise to the occasion if they can get their shot. Thank you for that segue, because you're segueing me right into where I was over the weekend. And I'll tell you what, Steve, I hope we can get you down here at some point to see one of my races with the USCS Sprint Car Series, because I think you'd have some serious fun down here too, just like you guys do up north. But Tom, I want to talk about one of our guys from over the weekend who needs a shot in a 410 sprint car and needs a shot to go national, because he is too good to not get snapped up by somebody, and that's Derek Hagar, the young 23-year-old who has just ripped up the USCS sprint car ranks over the past couple years, defending champion. Unbelievable run that he went on this weekend. We started our 6-race speed week on Saturday night at Jackson, Mississippi, the Jackson Motor Speedway. Boy, oh boy, Derek put a whooping on the field Saturday night, took the win from the Crawdaddy, Tim Crawley. Steven, we've talked about Tim on the ASCS side a whole bunch, but Hagar won the Rock and Roll 50 recently on the ASCS side, comes over to USCS again, beats Crawley, wins his 24th career event, and then goes to Greenville, Mississippi on Sunday night, does it again, this time over Jeff Swindell. You know, we talk about these names, the Swindell names, still active in the in the ASCS and USCS side. Jeff Swindell finishing second. He won bunch of races back in the early 2000s with USCS, and then last night, Memorial Day Monday, Hagar goes out on his late father's birthday at Clay Hill Motorsports Park. Hagar goes to victory lane, beats his former, I guess you say, former teammate, so to speak. They ran out of the same shop for 5 or 6 years. His mentor, the driver he worked for before he started racing on the tour, Marshall Skinner, the White Knight, bypasses Marshall for 4th on the all-time list with his 26th career USCS victory. And man, Tom, how much more can Derek Hagar do now? 3 wins in a row. He's been perfect so far in Speed Week. 26 overall, and right now 5 on the year. This kid, he needs a shot to go national because, like I said, he is too good to stay where he's at and not keep moving forward.
Oh, I agree, and really, Derek epitomizes exactly what I just talked about, that the sprint cars are one division of racing that has consistently kept that breeding ground or farm system going, and it's been working for all these years. And when you started talking about Derek and mentioned that he was only 23 for a half a second, I had to stop and think about that, because when I was in Memphis, I watched Derek kind of come up into the sprint cars, and it just seems like he's been doing this forever now to be just 23 years old, and just such poise and such maturity behind the wheel. I mean, he really does deserve a shot, and I believe if he keeps doing this long enough, somebody will give him that chance, and I think he'll make good on it. And Steve, that is exactly when we start looking around, you see, obviously you and I, being from New York State, have the opportunity to watch, you know, the regional touring series like ESS and you know, the PST and of course all of the tracks in Pennsylvania where even drivers like Eric Riggins are coming up from our neck of the woods down here in the South now to race with URC up there. We see a lot of drivers like Derek Hagar as time passes that you just know that if they could just get that one shot, and I think there's 2 or 3 of them, honestly, including Stuart Friesen, who would fit that bill perfectly.
Oh, absolutely. And here's the thing with Stuart Friesen. I mean, he won everything he could win at Utica Rome this weekend. Took the ESS win on Sunday night. Won a modified feature Sunday night as well, and then Memorial Day backs that up with the Race of Champions Dirt Modified Tour win in the 100-lapper there that paid $10,000 to win. Now let's look at Friesen real quick. Friesen is doing all this great stuff up here in the Northeast, but he's also going to get a chance at an asphalt modified, and that's something we talked to him about earlier last week out at Thunder Mountain. Was they are putting together a deal to hopefully get him out by New Hampshire is his goal. And that was actually a story that he said broke a little prematurely, but he has spoken with Brett Bodine and everybody with NASCAR to try and get his clearance. They got to do some testing, but yeah, that's a perfect example of a guy who's doing great things regionally and is going to get a chance to try and see what he can do on a more national level.
That's absolutely right, Steve, and I'll be excited to follow that story here in the next couple weeks. But getting ready to put a bow on this. Excited as always. Appreciate you coming on, and as we get ready to wrap up this Memorial Day wrap up, I want to turn to Kyle Souza real quick, because before we head out here this evening, Kyle, I know you've got a little bit of a National Series update from the Wheelin' All-American Series points. A little bit of breaking news on that front from over the weekend.
Yeah, so anybody that doesn't know, the Waterford Speed Bowl up in here in Connecticut competes weekly with the SK Modified Division, and well-known name Keith Rocco, who has not only competed in SKs, but as well as the late models at Waterford and the NASCAR Wheelin' Modified Tour. He's also competed in various New England races in the South, and he recently competed in Denny Hamlin Short Track Showdown. But before I keep rambling on here, the story that I'm about to share with you happened Saturday night at the Waterford Speed Bowl in the SK Modified 35-lap feature. It was found that Keith Rocco's car did not have tethers in his front end tires. And I'm not really a car specialist, but from what I'm understanding, the tethers connect the chassis to the front tires, so they don't come off when an incident occurs on the racetrack. Fortunately, an incident occurred on the racetrack, not on Rocco's car, but another car that he made contact with in the front straightaway. The tire on the other car ended up going flying towards the flag stand at Waterford. Speaking with Rich Keeter, he had to duck out of the way. Rich is their chief starter on Saturday nights. He had to duck down out of the way to avoid getting hit with the tire. It's found in post-race inspection that Rocco's car as well does not have these tethers in the front end, and we don't know for how long. It could have been in past seasons, because this isn't something that they go through and tech on a weekly and or bi-weekly basis at Waterford. So Rocco is definitely going to be facing penalty at Waterford in the SK division, and from what I'm hearing from up here in the Northeast, he will be facing Wheelin' All-American Series point standings deficit after what will be tomorrow's deadline interval day, which was supposed to be today, but with the Memorial Day on Monday, the penalty day for NASCAR goes back to Wednesday. So there's a quick New England news and notes, and we'll make sure we follow you that up on Thursday on the Stock Car Steel SRI Motorsports Report. Jacob.
And actually, I'm going to check you there, Kyle, tomorrow night's Stock Car Steel SRI Motorsports show, because as we get ready to close this show, won't be able to do the Stock Car Steel show on Thursday because I will be down south in Talladega, Alabama for the continuation of USCS Sprint Speed Week. Excited about that. I got 3 more shows to do, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. I'll be at the Talladega Short Track. Thursday night, head to the Magnolia Motor Speedway in Columbus, Mississippi on Friday, and close it all out, 6 races in 8 days, Saturday night in West Memphis, Arkansas at the Riverside International Speedway, the ditch, as they call it. We're going to see Thursday night if Derek Hagar can remain perfect in USCS Sprint Speed Week competition. He has so far, but of course, that is all still subject to change. We are not done just yet. Tom, I know you've got a show this weekend as well. You and I are both going to be in the announcer's booth this weekend. Fill us in real quick before we head off the air tonight where you're going to be here this weekend.
Yeah, you and I are going to be on opposite ends of Tennessee this weekend. You, of course, down at Riverside, one of my old haunts when I was in Memphis, my favorite tracks, which is technically in Arkansas, but it's West Memphis, Arkansas. And I will be in Eastern Tennessee at the Rocky Top Summer Series event for dirt go-karts at Dumpling Valley in Sevierville, Tennessee, near Dollywood. And really looking forward to that. That's going to be a one-day event on Saturday, so if there's any go-karters, dirt go-karters listening, get to Facebook, type in Rocky Top Summer Series, pull up the page, all the information to get yourself signed in, or you can go to RockyTopSummerSeries.com. Really thankful to Jed Emert for letting me come over and man the microphone for the first of the 4-race series. So, yeah, should be a lot of fun. Definitely excited about that. Just kind of interesting that you and I are both doing mic duty in 2 different places. And actually, Kuza will be doing mic duty as well. Fast Friday starting up on Friday at Seekonk, right, Kyle?
Yeah, Fast Friday's kicking off this week. Unfortunately, the Mother Nature forecast is not looking too good, but we hope to kick off Fast Friday this year. Mother Nature hurt the first 3 Fast Fridays last year. We hope that doesn't happen this year, but the Sport 4s, both Seekonk Youth Racing Association classes, along with the Pure Stocks, and Nick Wascola will try and defend the Nick's Pit Stop Legend Series Championship. It all kicks off at 7 Eastern this week, and I'll be taking the jump from the flag stand up to the booth this year. I'm excited for that. I'm pretty well prepared for it, for what we've been doing here on Speed 77 Radio and Race Chaser Online, so I'm looking forward to it. Get out to your local racetrack this weekend, weather permitting, and enjoy the racing. We're starting to kick into the summer, guys.
Steve, you heading anywhere this weekend real quick?
Yep, going to Yates County Speedway on Friday night, their second show of the year. And we'll actually be headed out there next Tuesday for the ROC Dirt Mods. They're doing a 60-lap Northeast Showdown.
So we're all going to be in different places this weekend, and definitely excited about that. I hate to close the show on a down note, but I do want to toss something in here real quick, and I guess it's kind of a personal note, but it does have to do with the national motorsports scene real quick. Want to give a shout out to my step-grandfather, Ray DeWitt, former owner of Radius Motorsports, the team that my dad and my grandmother worked a lot of years with, the old 55 Jasper-sponsored team that Tim Fedewa, Ted Musgrave ran for back in the mid-'90s on the Cup scene, what was the NASCAR Busch Series and the ARCA Racing Series scene, in the hospital after a heart attack. So want to send some best wishes and prayers out to the rest of my family who's down in Myrtle Beach taking care of him right now, and want to send all the prayers out that way because they could use them right now. Just always tough, when we have anything of that nature happen in motorsports, but as always, racing's a family and we look out for each other. So with that update, want to say thank you to everybody who's been a part of tonight's edition of Motorsports Madness, and thanks to Kyle Souza, Stephen Ovens, Tom. You and I always have fun here. Joel definitely brought the life to the party tonight, and definitely looking forward to tomorrow night's edition of the Stock Car Steel SRI Motorsports Show, where Tom, you, Kyle, and I will break down the regional news from over the weekend, NASCAR home tracks. We'll have ARCA Racing Series updates. We'll have modifieds, pavement late models. We got it all. That's tomorrow night on the Stock Car Steel SRI Motorsports Show, right back here on Speed 77 Radio and Race Chaser Online at the normal time, 7 p.m. Eastern. So, for that, I'm Jacob Seelman, reminding all you race fans out there to keep it off the wall until we meet again. Got another exciting weekend of motorsports coming up. Wherever you may be, enjoy your racing, and, we're going to be all over the place. So, as I always say, we'll see you at the racetrack. Until tomorrow, everybody, good night.